Welcome. I am CentralSun21 on Twitter. In a nutshell, I produce, edit, and disseminate content specifically for black gay people that want to live forever. Yes, I said it. Forever. And have fun while doing it, honey. My current projects include Center of the Sun podcast, live streaming, and music production. I would like to collaborate with as many innovative black gay people as possible, just like myself. And if you proudly identify as black gay, oh my goodness, welcome. I urge you to ask for more information if you're curious. And if not, I'm going to have to ask you kindly to leave, Kevin Hart. What the fuck are we going to talk about today? Do you value yourself? Why am I just getting hip? Oh my God. Well, if you want the answer, you're going to have to listen to the rest of the show because we're getting into it today. But of course, I need a little bit of a dance break. I had a long weekend and it's been great. Tap your feet if you don't want to dance. See you on the other side. Turn it up. All right. Thank you for listening. I am CentralSun21 on Twitter. And you are listening to Center of the Sun. Today we are trying to, and when I say we, I mean me and you. I'm just trying to understand life expectancy and the value of human life and why our fucking society is promoting suffering. And I don't understand. It's very taxing, but the damage is already done. And unfortunately, these headlines today, I've been trying to avoid headlines. So I realized that we don't really get into like reporting the news on this show, but I do like to browse the headlines because some stuff you just can't ignore. So let's get into it. So I don't know if y'all read on Fox News. So I use Fox News. I keep the channel on my TV, and I also keep every time something big happens in the world, I make sure that I cross-check Fox News to see whether or not is gone mainstream. So today on Twitter, I was looking at the feed, and a woman, she shared a Fox News article, and then so I was like, okay, this is weird, but it was in relation to let me pull it up, actually. Let me go to google.com. Oh, no. Fox News. Oh, not Fox Now. No. Fox News. Foxnews.com. So there is a, ultra-conservative person that fucking Andrew McCarthy. So he penned a memo today stating that he thinks that Donald Trump will be indicted. Not by the federal government, but by this Southern District of New York. And let me just read a few lines from that. One, and now I'm getting an ad for fucking Farahim. I don't know what the fuck that is, but so the major takeaway from the 40-page sentencing memorandum filed by federal prosecutors Friday for Michael Cohen, President Trump's former personal attorney, is this. The president is very likely to be indicted on a charge violating federal campaign finance laws. Now, if Fox News is reporting this, yeah, the shit has officially hit the fan, and it's been obvious. They go on to say that it's been obvious for some time that the president is a principal subject of an investigation that's still being conducted by several districts, but by this particular Southern District of New York. And the only reason why I know this for a fact is because I've been following this for the last 2 years. Thank you, Rachel Maddow. So I think the House of Cards is actually falling, but I don't want it to fall too fast. Do you know why? Because then Mike Pence is going to be the damn vice president. Yeah, it's like fucking insane. But anyway, if you haven't been following this, the New York Times has excellent highlights. And so I've been following the New York Times. And basically what they're concluding is that Trump, like we all knew, defrauded voters into thinking that he, and he knowingly hid it. And that's the reason why he's in such big fucking trouble, is because they went through these elaborate schemes to hide it. So society, yes. What else is going on? Tweet me at CenterSun21 on Twitter. What are some headlines that you're engaging in today? Beto O'Rourke, a Texan, emerges as the wild card of the 2020 campaign in waiting. And I'm like, we don't need nobody else from Texas. Thank you. Thank you, Bushes and all those people, like Bill Clinton. Like, we don't need anybody else from Texas. I don't know why they think they can run this country. Because they think they can do the shit by themselves. No, we don't need y'all. Chicago is just as good of a state to govern. So Cory Booker out here courting voters in New Hampshire. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Here we go. Because what we know is not going to happen is Donald Trump's second term. That just cannot happen. Because more and more every day. So now we got the president entrenched in scandal, and now we got the whole president's family entrenched in scandal. And not only are they entrenched in scandal, there's like proof, and senior American officials are worried. And the New York Times reported on December 8th, 2018, since the early months of the Trump administration, Jared Kushner, ugly ass, the president's son-in-law and Middle East advisor, have been having private and informal conversations with, guess who, Saudi Arabia's king. Now, you know what? I don't got nothing else to say. I honestly don't. I don't have energy. I can't even do it because I can't stand the way that we are in cahoots with these people. But it's not even like above board. Like, if you need to be in cahoots with somebody, why do you need to hide it? Like, if you're working with another country, like, what are you doing in the dark? Yeah, weird stuff, but that's society. Thank you for listening. Oh my God, I'm tired. Please tweet me, CenterSun21 on Twitter. What are your headlines, please? Because the New York Times is singing one note at this point. And Michael Cohen and all his fucking advice, Donald Trump's advisors are going down. Anyway, I wanted to touch a little bit on basic science today. I feel like we don't talk about, the Center of the Sun has been heavily relying on the methods of science to help guide our choices around how we think about the world and think about ourselves and think about how we fit into all of this stuff. So basic science, it largely has changed over the course of human development and human history because as we began learning new things, we just kept kind of tweaking our understanding of the world and then supporting those statements and those theories about what we believe. We did that. We explain that with math. So we do that through observing the earth. We use water. We look at air. We look at fire. Like those irrefutable aspects of our world, those don't change. And basic science, the pursuit of answers is not always easy. And sometimes you have to use that's why we have religions and stuff like that, because sometimes you can't explain every single thing with basic science. So basic science drives a lot of our research today. So if you take a pill or eat a food or use a face wash or do anything, you have engaged in a process of science. But as we've been discovering on Center of the Sun, nothing is what it seems at first. You have to import the tools of science in order to make a wise decision. We've explored alchemy, and we've explored energy, and we've explored all kinds of things to help us understand those little holes. So string theory. Let's touch back on string theory. String theory is a product of basic science. Basically, Albert Einstein, he created theories out of other people's theories. And he actually, at the time of his peak and during his life, he was competing with a lot of other ideas, and he lost at the time. And he wasn't vindicated until actually like in 2015, when we built a huge machine to observe the smallest aspects of the universe, like the atoms and the electrons and all the other things that come out of it. And we're able to actually, with basic science, using methods of trial and error, we were able to figure out that light is definitely a wave, stuff like that, and that those frequencies we only see with our eyes and feel with our physical body. We only see fractions of those, of that spectrum, of that frequency. So if you think about water, you can find the evidence best by looking at water, because the same patterns, they are reflected just like in water throughout society or throughout the world. So I encourage you to dig a little deeper into science. And I think what I'm pissed about is that a lot of people, if it's science and math is not immediately intuitive to you as a child, you tend to be discouraged from it, especially women and especially black men. I know for a fact I had trouble in math class in 8th grade, and it wasn't because I didn't understand it. It was because I learned it in a different way, and it didn't dawn on me that was my situation until I was well into my 30s. Have you all experienced that? Did you all feel like you were kind of shortchanged in school because your teacher was like too tired or something? And you learned all these things about science and math and all these processes and systems, but we never really got a chance to put them all together in full context, because I guess they thought we had other things to handle. So the biggest thing, my biggest concern, especially with basic science, is the understanding of research by the general public. And the National Institute of Health, they are a federal institution that directs public health policy, and they have money and they have laws, and they are the people that operate the health departments and the city clinics and all that kind of stuff. They make sure that everything is together, and they also work with pharmaceutical companies to create new medications to prevent and treat a whole host of diseases. So prevention research, specifically using very basic fundamentals of science, because in order to get to the human part of research, you have to first prove that it's like scientifically sound. So prevention research spans all diseases and conditions. The NIH defines prevention research by focusing on all conditions and populations and phases of life. And prevention research is designed to produce results that are directly applicable to identifying and assessing risks, as well as developing and testing other interventions to prevent and reduce harmful exposures like sexually transmitted infections, disease onset, and disease progression. So there are various kinds of prevention, and they all start let me see, like it's called primary, secondary, I'm gonna Google this, and tertiary prevention. And tertiary just means the third out of whatever list. Tertiary could also mean the earth. So I don't really know why those two words are the same, but let me explain it to you in this way. So before research is created, we first make sure that the science is sound. So we know that our bodies, we have like every heavy metal, we have all the elements existing in our body that exist in the world. They also exist within our body in very trace amounts. But any imbalance of any of those chemicals, anything going wrong can create an illness like cancer or whatever it is. So primary prevention focuses on family lives, like normal shit, like immunizations and vaccines and stuff, because what we know is that an ounce of prevention equals a pound of a cure. So you can prevent a lot of issues down the road if you focus on modes of intervention that focus on preventing illnesses to begin with. So we have to acknowledge that that's a problem, just like any social ill. We have to acknowledge that it's a problem. We have to identify the risk factors and the disease population, and then we have to figure out the best way to prevent it. And then we have to put money, actual money, health dollars, into initiatives that promote well-being of everybody. So the principles of public health surround what's good for everyone is also good for the individual, and vice versa. So in terms of preventing illnesses, you have to think about the society as a whole, and you have to weigh risk and benefit. So let's take vaccines. A lot of people have been hurt, or their children have been hurt from vaccines, and they've gotten autism or whatever, and people have connected these vaccines to a whole host of psychological and neurological issues. But what's the alternative? The alternative is a pandemic. So it sounds cold and like very clinical and like kind of amoral, but what's good for society is also good for the individual. And primary prevention is not to cure everything and make sure every single 100% of everybody is protected, but it's the greatest good. And now, do I ascribe to that scorched earth kind of thing, like greatest good, like we'll kill everybody if it's the greatest good? Like, no, I don't subscribe to that. But in certain aspects of it, nuance is required, and you have to think critically about prevention work. So what else can we do? What if primary prevention doesn't quite hit the mark? What's the next thing? Is secondary prevention. So basic science, once it becomes acceptable to whatever governing body is funding it, there is a push to identify risk factors and try to prevent illnesses. But there's also a subclinical stage in which the NIH clarifies as exposure of individual to that risk factor or the early pathologic change of that disease. So let's take cancer. Screening and finding something on a screen is secondary prevention. So if you go in for a cancer screen and they find it and they treat you, they've prevented you from dying. That's secondary prevention. That's different from primary prevention, which you don't have that disease yet. Secondary prevention, you may have the disease, but you've only screened for it, so further clinical assessment is necessary. So that further clinical assessment is called tertiary prevention, and that is the actual diagnosis of signs and symptoms noted in an individual or a risk group. And the outcomes of those clinical diseases could be death, disability, recovery. That's why tertiary prevention is maintaining life expectancy. And that's what we're talking about today. Do you value life expectancy enough to forego your own toxic behaviors that hurt the public? Yeah. Your toxic behavior, if it's not good for society, how is it good for you? So let's take like speech therapy. So say if somebody has some neurological, something that could not be prevented, it wasn't diagnosed early, so now you have this cumbersome and disabling and debilitating illness. Say you need like speech therapy. That is a example of tertiary prevention because it helps you deal with what's going on in your life. It gives you the tools to deal with it. So I wanted to touch on that because it always astounds me how people come up with these ideas. So how do we even get the idea? So we have all these systems and stuff for like how we organize research, but where do you get the idea in the first place? I'm actually I wish you could talk back to me because I really want to know. And all I can find is that we use our imagination and our consciousness to create a unique, it is a unique human ability. And in my quest for today's show, I found that humans have insinuated that we're more powerful than any other animals on this planet. So we use imitation and imagination to subvert our enemies and to become the top of the food chain. And that's what truly makes us unique about creatures on this planet. And that's why we know that we're different than everything else on this planet, because we have the ability to make ourselves more powerful than we are. Because imagine us toe to toe with a bear or a lion. Like, those animals would kill us, but we found a way to domesticate them or cage them or something. But we didn't do it because we're like bigger. We did it because we're smarter. And I don't think we understand, even like picking up a ball and throwing it across the room, how much brain power and mathematics intuitively, because literally you're projecting possible futures and measuring a distance with your brain. You're not even using a tool or anything. You kind of just know intuitively how to throw a ball across the room. That is powerful. And we take those small things for granted, because if you put a lot of those little pieces together, you get huge breakthroughs in human development. Huge. And we have the ability to like throw, so the ability to throw is unique to humans. Did you know that? Because it requires such coordination for future outcomes. And no other animal can do that. They can toss, they can just toss things in a direction, but there's no 98 mile per hour pitcher elephant. That's just not how it works. What are your thoughts? Tweet me at CenterSun21 on Twitter. Thank you for listening. This is Center of the Sun, and I will catch you later.